On this episode of Hot Rod Hoarders, we're rummaging through Gary Brown's collection of future projects, abandoned projects, parts cars, and other random stuff that's followed him home, including this extremely rare Kaiser Traveler, which we're going to take a closer look at in this video. Before I get too carried away, I want to remind you to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Give this video a thumbs up if you like it, and feel free to leave a comment down below. So Gary Brown is the type of guy who can do just about anything with an old car or truck. He's built a bunch of Chevelles, Camaros, C10s, Pontiac GTOs, and even a few Fords. And he's built cars for himself, he's built for customers, he's bought and sold and traded through the years. And the end result of that is having a bunch of leftover projects and parts cars kind of stuffed away in his backyard. And that's what I'm going to show you today. So let's get right into it. Carly came along with me so we could have a little daddy-daughter adventure. And it was muddy back there, but she enjoyed every minute of it. And Gary was nice enough to let us borrow an old Toyota truck to get back through the mud and into his backyard. We're going to start this thing off with a lineup of classic Chevrolet C10 trucks. Now Gary loves a 1960 through 1966 truck. He's had a bunch of them. And these are just some of his leftover and future projects. You'll see some short wheelbase trucks. You'll see some Suburbans. These classic Suburbans are really getting hard to find, and he's got a few of them sitting here that are really cool. And Gary has also built a lot of big trucks like C30s and even C50s, like the big guys. And he's putting them on modern frames and getting them to where they're roadworthy. Sometimes he'll fix them up on the original frame, but it really makes a lot of sense to switch the body over to something more modern. In fact, inside his garage, he's got a C10 that he's working on that is really cool. It's set over on a Dodge truck chassis. It's got a Cummins turbo diesel, dually wheels out back. He's narrowed the bed and added some cool fenders. It's a really cool piece. This is going to be something that's going to hit the road really good, and it's going to look super cool. Moving on to another lineup here, we've got a Willys truck cab that's sitting on what appears to be a Chevrolet or GMC truck frame. Still got the inline 6-cylinder engine. Sitting next to it is one of the rarest 1950s cars that you'll ever see. It's a 1951 Kaiser Traveler. Now, Kaiser made this Traveler model in a 2-door and a 4-door. The 2-door was more rare, and that's what we're looking at here. This thing is crazy. You go around to the back of it, instead of having a regular deck lid, it actually has a tailgate that folds down and a hatch that pops open. And, you know, kind of a revolutionary design, sort of like a station wagon, but with a sporty type roof. Really cool piece, something you never see. I mean, you never see these cars. And that's because they were rare from day one. Only 1,450 of these 2-door Travelers were built in 1951. And there's probably just a handful of them that still exist. These cars are known for rusting out. They had, you know, some pretty bad metal, some pretty bad joints on these cars that just rusted out the floors and rocker panels. Henry J's, Kaisers, they're known for that. And this one is obviously very rusty, very rough, but it is just super cool. I mean, it is something that you never see. Even this is hinged somehow. There, yeah, this whole thing is hinged so that when you have the tailgate down, that the tag and lights and stuff still are upright. And this, I mean, I can't imagine how rare that hinge must be. And that's cast steel, I believe. It might be aluminum, I don't know. Some kind of cast metal. And that has got to be the rarest piece. What about this little emblem right here that says,
hold on.
What does that say? Darren? Darren Styled. That's what that says.
It's hard to... I didn't know that was a D.
Yeah,
kind
of a crazy looking D.
Yeah.
Darren Styled. That is cool. Check out this little Nova station wagon, about a 62 to 64 model. This thing is missing a few parts and pieces, but it's a pretty solid start to a cool project. Moving on down the line, there's a 1957 Chevrolet 2-door station wagon. Now this thing is crazy rusty. I mean, it's barely standing on its own, but it's got a good roof, and that is going to help with the project that's sitting next to it, which is a 55 2-door station wagon. They have pretty much the same roof, and obviously this one has some major roof damage from a tree falling on it or something falling on it. but it's something that's got sentimental value to Gary. He wants to eventually make a cool car out of that car using the 57 station wagon and the 55 sedan delivery that's sitting next to it. The sedan delivery actually has some pretty good parts on it. It's got disc brakes, it's got a late model steering box, it's got a dual master cylinder, different motor mounts, you know, the side mounts instead of the old front mounts. It's got a lot of good pieces already in place. So again, between the three cars, he can put some of his pieces together and make something cool out of it. Like I mentioned earlier, Gary loves classic trucks. And this old Chevy right here, it's big, but it's really short wheelbase. It's kind of a stubby looking truck, super cool piece. I'm not sure what his plans are for it, but it looks cool just sitting here. Moving further back is a 59 Chevrolet truck, and sitting next to it is about a 68 to 72 GMC. And then you'll see a lot of extra parts laying here, bumpers, beds, body panels, lots of good usable stuff. Of course, just like everywhere I go, I have to find some kind of drag racing piece, and he happened to have a big set of Goodyear slicks and Krager Super Trick wheels. I just love this kind of stuff. What got my attention while I was looking at these tires and wheels was an old school bus body just sitting down on the ground. And when you see a school bus body with an old car collection, you can pretty much guarantee that it's got car parts in it. So I had to make my way over there to check it out. And of course, it was packed full of parts. It was mostly drive shafts and some other random stuff. I wasn't able to really get in there to see, but these school buses make great storage buildings, so you know he's making good use of it. Moving a little further back, he's got a Nash Metropolitan sitting back there that's really cool. It's mostly complete, all the glass is there, the body's there. You know, it's missing a few little pieces here and there, but a really cool piece, something that's very buildable. As we make our way to the back portion of the property, you're going to see lots of 68 to 72 Chevy and GMC trucks, lots of parts, cabs, front ends, beds, frames. You know, he uses these things as parts trucks for different vehicles that he builds. He builds these trucks all the time. He buys and sells and trades on them. So these things get used. They're not just abandoned in the backyard. You know, they do serve a purpose. There's even some 40s and 50s Chevy trucks tucked away back here in the back corner. Lots of good parts on these trucks. Another cool piece back here is a 1961 Chevrolet Corvair station wagon. Not many of these things still exist. This one is obviously pretty rusty and pretty rough, but it's still all hanging together, so that counts. This four-wheel drive K5 Blazer is looking a little bit rough, but it's totally buildable for somebody who wanted a woods truck. And a lot of people are fixing these things and pouring tons of money into them and really making them nice, and they're bringing big money. It's really crazy what these trucks are doing right now. That counts for two-wheel drive and four-wheel drive. These things are just out of sight. Moving along, we see a Volkswagen Beetle, and behind it is a Willys station wagon that's been cut up and turned into an enclosed trailer. Pretty cool idea. I'm really loving this GMC short wheelbase fleet side four-wheel drive truck. This thing's got a ton of potential. And here's the only Ford on the property. It looks like about a late 60s F100 long wheelbase. Not sure what that's doing here. Further up the hill is an old school Chevy Wrecker, and Gary said he used this thing for years. When we made it up to the top of the hill, we found a few more projects. There's a 56 Pontiac four-door. There's an old Chevette, a really badly wrecked 75 to about a 78 Nova. I mean, this thing is hurt, but it obviously had some modifications done to it. I can see some shackles, I can see some cool decals and some gauges on the inside. So somebody must have got a little bit carried away with going fast and they hit something really hard. Then we got a 36 Chevy Sedan, really cool old car, tucked away back in the briars. I didn't get too close to it. And then a 59 Chevy truck even further back from it. Then we got a K5 Blazer that's sitting here with no wheels or tires. Again, these things are bringing big money, so that could be a potential project. And then we got this short bus. It's made out of a late 50s Chevy, and somebody's cut this thing and made it even shorter. I'm not really sure what you'd do with it, but it's kind of cool to look at. Another future project is this second generation Camaro, and Gary actually owned this thing over 20 years ago and recently had the opportunity to buy it back. Now he's going to go back and put it back together again, get it back on the road. And this 60 model Chevrolet truck is a cool piece. He's actually lowered this thing down so it's really hunkered down on those big wheels and tires. And it's original paint for the most part, and it's got a big block Chevrolet in there. I mean, he uses this thing all the time. This shelf is packed with cool parts. It's got some cool intakes, carburetors, valve covers, all sorts of cool stuff from the 1960s and 70s. He was also nice enough to take us up into the attic of his shop, and he's got a bunch of stuff stashed away up there. He did a great job building this so that he'd have more room for storage and more room to work down in the main part of his shop. And he's got all kinds of cool stuff, mostly Chevrolet, lots of big block exhaust manifolds, lots of just random parts, steering columns, shifters, consoles out of C10s. He's got a 59 Chevrolet dash up here, you know, lots of cool stuff. And he had a really cool story to tell us about this steering wheel that's just sitting in a pile of other steering wheels, but this one had a special story.
69 Camaro, 396, 427 heads, 4-speed with a 12 bolt. Got one seat bolted down. A good friend of mine sitting in the back on the floor, leaned back against the back of the seat. This car was violent. Open headers, had a hole half that big in the floor right there where that open header was. Factory gauges, tack. I mean, this old car right here, we take off on the old road and they had tarred and chipped it about 3 months prior, and the loose gravel had went away, and the gravel was sticking up about that high. I had a set of 255 70s on the back of this 69 Camaro now with a posi. It was wicked. I sidestepped that old car, and when I pulled it in second, it got a bite. And when it did, it jerked the bolts through the floorboard in the front seat, and I broke that steering wheel with my left hand. And Marshall Dayboard said, "Hold her, Brown." I said, "What with?" But I broke it. I wouldn't take nothing for that steering wheel.
That's.
But I done that in a 69 4-speed. I got a picture of the car down there in my office hanging up.
That's definitely a keeper.
I want to say a huge thank you to Gary for letting us roam around in his backyard, showing us some projects in the shop, and even showing us the secret stash of parts up in the attic. We had a blast, and we're looking forward to showing you more collections like this in the future, so stay tuned. Thank you for watching.